Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. So, guys, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about there's such a myriad of different lines of thoughts in Hinduism. Now, Hinduism is thought to be the world's oldest religion, and the most dominant forms of it are Vaishnavism and Shaivism and Shaktiism. And there's differences in them in that Vaishnavism, the devotees are devoted to Vishnu, who is the preserver of the universe and who has incarnated many times, including as Rama and also Krishna, two of the more famous ones. Shaivism is dedicated to Shiva and has many forms, and Shiva does have many, many forms. Shaktiism is devoted to the mother, to the divine goddess and the feminine principle. So many of you might be familiar with Shiva, and if you saw the reading I did today, you saw Nandi, which is the bull that carries Shiva. And so Shiva has his trident here as well, and you see some of the symbols of Shiva all around him. And it's really a much more complicated God, quote unquote, than when you look at it on the surface. And people that haven't studied in depth the various forms of Hinduism would probably be blown away with the diversity in there. And yet one of the beauties of Hinduism is that it's kind of all encompassing, and it's basically, it's good and it's fine that there's a myriad of different belief sets and systems there. So Shiva is part of the big trinity of basically Brahma, which is the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva is thought to be the destroyer, but he's also many other things besides that. And destroyer in that, take our situation right now with us being in the Kali Yuga, the Dark Age, coming out of the Dark Age. So we could view it as his purpose there is to wash away and sweep away the Dark Age in order to allow a new, better age to come. As we see him here, and this is Nataraj, or the dancing aspect of Shiva, as Lord of the Dance, also the turner of the wheel, and of the ages themselves, as he's stepping on a demon. And often you'll see depictions of the gods stepping on demons. And so the gods were designated devas, and the demonic counterpart would be the asuras. Now, the devas, there's also what's called mahadevas. So Mahadeva would apply to Shiva, to Vishnu, and to Brahma, and that just simply means great deva, or great, like angelic type being. And here we see Shiva united with Shakti. And this is part of the divine mystery of the oneness that permeates everything. So you have the half masculine, half feminine. In a way, this is just like the symbol of the Tao. And really, there are clear parallels between Hindu philosophy, Taoist philosophy. Buddhism comes out of Hinduism. Jainism, according to some, comes out of Hinduism. Some think it's actually predated Hinduism or developed alongside it. And you can see that there's many different religions that really are very, very congruous in their beliefs. They use slightly different labels. But we could clearly view this as, obviously, the dualistic aspect of the universe, just like the symbol of the Tao. But then also recognize that there is an underlying utility all around it, unity all around it. You have the masculine, you have the feminine, the light and the dark. All those forces which, the sun and the moon, everything that creates dynamism, basically, gives things motion, impetus, allows things to actually manifest. So it's pretty fascinating when you look into the greater aspects of it. Also, we could look at this and recognize it as a symbol of Kundalini and Tantric Yoga, which also recognizes Shiva and Shakti, is all about, Kundalini and ascending consciousness. And we do it by basically finding balance between the masculine and the feminine energies in the person, in the individual. And so we have the masculine and the feminine nadis, and nadis are energy channels, and the Ida and the Pingala are the feminine and the masculine. And together, when they're balanced, the energy will rise up the central portion of the spine, the Sushumna, and activate the Kundalini, which then allows us to experience the greater unity of all things. Shiva is also Adi Yogi, and so he is the first yogi. And yoga means union, the way, the path of union with divinity, with source, with God. And as you see here in iconic inspiration, the only way to experience true well-being is to turn inward. This is what yoga means. Not up, not out, but in. It is in this way. This is the only way out, by going within. That's Sadhguru. As you see, the largest bust in the world of Shiva right here in its immense size, with the crescent moon over his head. And of course the third eye being accentuated there, because that is the true seat of the soul, and that's also the key to experiencing gnosis. And we can see clear parallels with Gnostic philosophy when we look at Shiva and Shakti, and then we also look at source in total in Gnosticism, of which, again, Gnosticism means knowing, it means knowledge, it means direct experience. It's all about that direct experience of the unity of all things, that reunion with the divine that can only happen by going within, not to go into any church, not to any particular, listening to and adhering to any particular dogma. The individual's path is unique. And so when we look at this, Shaivism refers to a cluster of religious schools and traditions in Hinduism devoted primarily to the worship of the god Shiva, who is one of the principal gods of Hindu religion. Shaivism is practiced widely throughout India, has many distinct regional variations in both philosophy and practice. Its followers are referred to in English as Shaivites, and the most commonly worshipped symbol is the linga. And if you listen to Sadhguru, because here they're saying this is out of the New World Encyclopedia, they're saying it's a phallic column representative of Shiva's paradoxical virility and chastity, which is interesting at the same time, because, he's potent and he's virile, but he's also a yogi and he's also chaste. So it's that duality that we see there. But they will tell you that it's not necessarily really phallic. It's all about the manifestation of the universe and how the universe manifests. So with approximately 200 million adherents, Shaivism is one of the most prominent communities within Hinduism, second only to Vaishnavism, which worships the Hindu god Vishnu. And many people are very strong devotees of Krishna, of which many believe that's where the source of Christ comes from. So the Indus Valley civilization, and I and other scholars, if you have listened to Robert Seffer, if you've listened to so many others, Graham Hancock, there is a strong force in the world that wants to kind of change our history and put down a little bit or dismiss the importance of certain civilizations. And the Indus Valley civilization is one of them that has been kind of dismissed. And I feel strongly that this is really the older civilization than Sumeria. And I think that's being put down because I think we live under the Sumerian system right now, which has become the Roman system. The Roman Empire, it went from being the Sumerian Empire, the Akkadian Empire, and then just morphing, becoming the Roman Empire, the British Empire, and now the United States Empire, really. It's that whole idea of kingship from on high and a top-down hierarchy, which is not exactly what we really see. One of the fascinating things that we have found is the discovery of Mohenjo-Daro, which is just an amazing thing to behold. And so Mohenjo-Daro, we found a seal. Pashupati is a form of Shiva. And it's fascinating because we have the Gundastrup cauldron as well. And Mohenjo-Daro, here we see some of the ruins. It's at least 5,000 years old, and some believe it's far older. If you listen to Graham Hancock and others, a lot of these datings are biased because they want to maintain the status quo. One of the most amazing things about this civilization here in the Indus Valley is that they had no central government. And so it is a distinct odds with what we see coming out of everywhere else, pretty much. Sumeria and, of course, Rome and Greece and everything that has gone on down in Europe. The whole idea that you could have a very well structured civilization without a central government is something that would most definitely turn the stomachs of the governments around the world right now. But that's exactly what they have found here. Amazing thing. So, it's called Mohenjo-Daro. Nobody knows for sure what the people in the town called it, in the city there. Literally translates to Mound of the Dead. The city of Harappa and other important Indus Valley sites were found on a series of mounds over 250 acres of land, hence such a name. And so urban planning and architecture has memorized thousands of architects and archaeologists. The 5,000-year-old plus city could host a population of 40,000, had a meticulous road plan with rectilinear buildings, channeled sanitation, a huge well that served as a public pool to bathe, a great granary, and many other amazing designs on the building. It is also fascinating that multi-storied buildings were found at the sites of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, and the Harappan civilization really, as we're going deeper into it, many are recognizing this really might predate Sumeria, and that would turn everything on its head. So there are signs that prove the Indus Valley civilization had no monarchy. It was governed by an elected committee, most likely. And there are around 1,500 sites of the Indus Valley civilization. No sign of warfare, no sign of weapons. So they were peaceful in nature, which may have made it vulnerable to the foreign invaders. So it's pretty fascinating to see that. Could there have been a peaceful civilization with no central government in the past? People just getting along without having to pay homage to a king? Pretty interesting. And here we see Pashupati, who bears a striking resemblance to Cernunnos, later to be known as Herne the Hunter. And it's fascinating. This is a Celtic god, and Herne the Hunter over in Great Britain, and this is Pashupati, which is a form of Shiva. So pretty fascinating when we look at it. And this gets into the horn god, Cernunnos and Pashupati. Are they all one? And, really when we go on down and we look at it, it is true that what has happened is that, the Western world and the Western civilization has wiped out everything they can of other people's indigenous beliefs, as we know. In many cases it was, basically you have to be baptized and adhere to the new religion, Christianity, or be executed. And that happened many, many times, unfortunately. So it's interesting. Here you see Purusha, the cosmic being. It's an alternative term for Ishvara, which is also a persona of Brahman. Creation emerges out of Purusha as a fruit of his universal sacrifice. Interesting there. So again, that's another older tradition that is, you could see where so many of the origins of the more modern ones take from the older ones. So Shiva is known by many other names: Vishwanathan, Lord of the Universe; Mahadeva, Mahesha, Maheshvara, Shankara, Shambhu, Rudra. Rudra is like the storm god version of Shiva as well. And it goes on and on. It's fascinating to see. And Shiva's had many different incarnations, including that of Babaji, who is a immortal along the lines of, say, Saint Germain, amongst others. And it is thought in some circles that when Christ, the missing years were happening, Christ actually went to India and was learning under Babaji, who is an incarnation of Shiva, and then went and made his way back. So that is pretty fascinating to see as well. Another incarnation was Hanuman, who protected Lord Rama, and Lord Rama was Vishnu, an incarnation of Vishnu. So Shiva is also seen as a cosmic, almighty, formless god, Parameshwara Shiva, or Purusha, who is the source of everything, the male aspect of Paramatman, the supreme soul, while Parameshwari Shakti, Prakriti, being his consort, the female aspect. So there again, we see that idea of balance, which we don't really have in traditional Christianity. When you look at it, every other form of religion and philosophy has always had that balance in there, the male and the female components. And when we look at Gnosticism, it did have that. And so Gnosticism, again, was a form of Christianity that was completely demolished and destroyed, burning every book. Thankfully, we found some at the Nag Hammadi site, and also some Gnostic texts in the Dead Sea Scrolls as well. But it wasn't until the 1940s, for 1,600 years, it was pretty much wiped out and banished by the Orthodoxy. And of course, once Constantine made his church, everything else was going to be a heresy and would not be tolerated. And so one of the beauties of Hinduism is a very tolerant system as well. And they don't try to force or convert anyone. So it's interesting to see these similarities. And there's Kernunos in meditation. So is it really Shiva as well? So we see here Shivaism. And one of the main truths is that God and the individual are one. To realize this is the essence of Shivaism. So, that's again at odds with the current Western Orthodox point of view. And it makes a huge, huge difference. And this is more on Shiva. And it's just, there's so many fascinating things as we look into it. We could also look into it as Shiva is, Shiva literally means that which is not. So Shiva is that which, when combined with the mother goddess, manifests the actual universe. So without either of them, you take one away and there could really be no life. You need the masculine and the feminine to give us that manifest universe. He's also, as we said, he's the first yogi. He's the great ascetic, which is abstaining from all forms of indulgence and pleasure, concentrating rather on meditation as to find a means to perfect happiness. So we're going to look at Kashmiri Shaivism, which is a branch of Shaivism that came about much later, which is a non-dualistic form of Shaivism, and also which is fascinating because Kashmiri Shaivism goes perfectly with everything we've learned in quantum physics. So very interesting stuff. I just wanted to give you guys a taste of this and encourage you to go in deeper, because there's so many deep layers to this. Just as we've said many times with the Bible, for the masses, Jesus taught in parables, because most people were not learned. Most people could not read or write, and they could only understand basically stories. They had a limited framework to work with. And, thus, that's why if they saw lights in the sky or they saw beings they didn't understand, they would call them either angels, gods, or demons. They didn't understand the concept of all different types of beings. So he taught simply, as in stories that they could relate to. And it's the same thing in Hinduism. There's a lot of stories that anybody could relate to. But if you want to go deeper, you could go deeper into the science of it and really understand a much greater degree. And as we have said before, Christ taught to his inner circle plainly the secrets. So very interesting stuff. I just wanted to share that with you guys. As always, like, share, subscribe. Thank you for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. God bless and namaste.